This upcoming weekend is one of the toughest for those in the NFL. All across the league, teams will be forced to trim their rosters down from 90 players to 53 players for the start of the regular season. The New York Giants have some very difficult decisions to make across the roster, with intense and heated battles coming down to the wire at wide receiver, running back, cornerback, safety, and several other key positions. With that said, that means the team will still have to release 37 players by 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday afternoon. Some cuts will be more difficult than others. The team will also be able to sign 10 players to the practice squad on Sunday after players have cleared through waivers, but only players with less than 3 years service time will be able to be placed on the practice squad. It is very likely the Giants build their 10-man practice squad for most if not all of the players released this weekend. Here is our look on who we believe the Giants will release this weekend after the final preseason game against the New England Patriots on Thursday night. Let's jump right in. Alex Tanney. It's a tough break for Tanney, who really never had much of a chance to crack the Giants roster alongside entrenched starter Eli Manning, 22-year-old Kyle Lauletta and 23-year-old Davis Webb. Tanney put together some solid tape in the second preseason game against the Detroit Lions with a nice go route down the left sideline for a big completion, but then he wasn't used at all in the third preseason game. Head coach Pat Shurmur will most likely give him the opportunity to put some more game tape out there in the fourth and final preseason game in the hopes that another team will give him a call and add him to their roster. Jalen Simmons, Gerald Presley, Scott Simonson, Ryan O'Malley, Garrett Dickerson. The Giants will go light at tight end this year, with just 3 players retained despite the fact that they like to use 12 personnel with 2 tight ends on the field. The rationale behind this is because fullback Sean Smith has proven himself capable of being a versatile chess piece who can be moved around the formation in 21 personnel groupings with a fullback on the field and just 1 tight end. O'Malley had the best shot of making the roster, considering Simons and Dickerson joined the team late in training camp with fewer opportunities to make an impact, but injuries have limited him this August. 7 Hunter Sharp *8, Amba Adebayo 9, Travis Rudolph 10, Marquise Bundy 11, Alonzo Russell 12. Will Davis. The Giants will only keep 6 wide receivers and these players just missed the cut. Hunter Sharp is the last player on the bubble who saw his hopes burst despite the fact that he returned a punt for a touchdown against the Jets. Sharp loses out on the battle to wide receiver Khalif Raymond, who also had an explosive 33-yard punt return despite not receiving the same blocking on the play. Sharp's 2 costly drops on third down passes from Eli Manning cost him his job in our final prediction here. Adebayo put together an impressive camp in preseason, culminated with his big catch against the Jets from Davis Webb. He could be ticketed for a trip to the practice squad. Travis Rudolph was a fan favorite last preseason, but injuries derailed his August this year around. Evan Brown. While the undrafted rookie free agent joined the Giants with a lottie grade from Pro Football Focus after entering the draft as one of the best centers in pass protection, he might be a bit undersized for the NFL, or at least the new Giants blocking scheme that stresses power blockers up front. Brown is likely someone they find interesting for the future and therefore has a real shot as the practice squad. According to PFF, he has been solid this preseason overall as a blocker. Zach Kerr. John Jerry. Despite the fact that the Giants gave Jerry a last-ditch effort to make a name for himself at right tackle, his tenure with the Giants looks like it will finally come to an end. Jerry didn't latch on fast enough at offensive tackle and his preseason play at offensive guard hasn't been stellar. Jerry is an average NFL pass blocker but one of the worst run-blocking guards in the NFL, and that's not going to cut it in Dave Gettleman's revamped offensive line up front. Chris Scott is someone to keep an eye on, as we originally projected he would be cut before the team traded Brett Jones to the Minnesota Vikings. Now, Scott is a favorite to claim that open spot vacated by Jones' departure. Chad Wheeler Victor Salico Malcolm Bunch. The expectation heading into training camp was that second-year USC undrafted free agent defensive tackle Chad Wheeler would challenge Eric Flowers to start at right tackle. After the preseason, few remain hopeful that this will develop. Wheeler has struggled throughout the preseason on an extended amount of snaps, and now his roster spot is certainly in jeopardy. We believe the Giants will instead turn to Nick Becton for the final swing offensive tackle spot. Becton is a bit of an unknown, but he has been extremely impressive this preseason, especially in the third preseason game against the Jets. The Giants could also look to fill the final offensive tackle spot with a player they pick up off waivers at final cuts. Josh Banks, A.J. Francis, Christian Sokoli. A.J. Francis made a lot of noise during training camp against the third-team offensive line, and even the second and on rarer occasions the first-team offensive line, but it simply hasn't translated to the preseason action. In another year, Francis easily makes the roster as one of the final 5 in. However, in 2018, the Giants have focused on adding depth and talent to the defensive line and outside linebacker positions. Francis falls victim to this. Tyrell Chavis Isa Lunsford due to the flexibility players like B.J. Hill and Robert Thomas offer, with the ability to play defensive end or defensive tackle in James Bettcher's new 3-4 base defensive scheme. The Giants can get away with keeping fewer defensive tackles. Chavis, the rookie undrafted free agent out of Penn State with a great backstory, falls victim to that fact despite a solid training camp. Jordan Williams, the outside linebacker, has actually strung together a solid preseason and training camp after transitioning to a more natural position at outside linebacker, but following the off-season additions of Connor Barwin, Kareem Martin, and Lorenzo Carter, this was going to be an uphill battle for Williams from the start. Look for him to join the team's practice squad. Calvin Munson. Thurston Armbrister. Tae Davis. Munson was impressive last preseason, but has battled through injuries that have limited him this time around. His availability played a big factor in him missing the final cut, in addition to the emergence of Ray Armstrong at the inside and not outside linebacker position. Davis is an intriguing rookie free agent who might get the call for the practice squad over Munson after playing well in training camp. Grant Haley. Mike Jones. Chris Lewis. Harris Haley was the best story of rookie minicamp as the undrafted rookie, but the Giants only have one spot for an undersized but feisty cornerback, and they go with Dante Deine over him as one of the final roster decisions this year. Haley will certainly be #1 priority on the team's practice squad, similar to what they did with wide receiver Travis Rudolph last year. Harris entered training camp high on the depth chart but has since fallen fast, grading out as one of the worst cornerbacks on the field versus the Jets according to Pro Football Focus. Sean Chandler. Andrew Adams. Orion Stewart. Both Stewart and Chandler have made their fair share of big plays throughout training camp, but it hasn't translated to the preseason just yet. The long touchdown given up to Browns wide receiver Antonio Callaway was largely due to the angle Stewart tried to take to make the tackle. Adams is the most surprising cut on this list after being an integral part of the defense the past 2 seasons, but he hasn't found a home in the new defensive scheme after being converted from free to strong safety.